attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Welcome along to the Premier League show on NUFC Matters with me and Melly. How are you, Melly?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, not bad, mate. Good to see you. And we are in an international break. So the first batch of games in the Premier League have been completed. 1 win for Newcastle and 3 defeats in probably one of the hardest starts to a Premier League that I think many a club will have had to face. No shame, of course, in the defeat against Man City, as we discussed. Gutted about the defeat to Liverpool, but an absolute meltdown, I think, for Newcastle fans on social media after the defeat against Brighton. And yeah, it's a tough one to take because, one thing that Eddie Howe's teams don't lack is effort. And it just seemed as if we were just all out of everything against Brighton. We've had a week to reflect on it. We've got another week to reflect on it, of course, as the build-up to Newcastle against Brentford starts today. But from your perspective, Melly, Manchester United, of course, were at Arsenal, and they looked as if, in all intents and purposes, they were going to get a win. It looked as if Manchester United were going to get all 3 points, and Arteta was going to be crying into his red wine in his dressing room afterwards. But Arsenal, after a disallowed goal for Manchester United, went up the other end, a wicked deflection from a Declan Rice shot. So Arsenal go into a 2-1 lead, and Gabriel Jesus, of course, put the icing on the cake to make it 3-1, leaving it, a less than happy camp, I would guess, on the terraces. So what did you make of that result for Manchester United, Melly?
Well, I should have won, mate. It was absolutely shocking, really. I mean, is that offside? Does the benefit not go on with the forward? A lot of people on here say that Man United get the run of the green when it comes to VAR and referee decisions, but because we got that Wolves decision initially in the first game, everything's gone against us since. It was absolutely heartbreaking, mate, and I normally come away from there feeling really despondent. The last 2 seasons, they've nicked it, and again, they nicked it again, but it should have been 3 points to United. Honestly, it absolutely flabbergasted us. We'll have a better season than Arsenal. They aren't as good as what they were last season, I don't think. And I think United, with having Amrabat coming in, Højlund looks a force to be reckoned with. He done more than that 20 minutes that he came on than Martial's done in his whole career at Manchester United. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. I've put him straight into my FPL because he looked that good. But it was absolutely heartbreak. It really was. It's absolutely devastating.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things that you get moments like that in a football season, and you've got to take it on the chin. Unfortunately, they do level up over a season. That offside, I mean, got to be honest. Listening to the 2 referees, Mike Dean and Dermot Gallagher, giving their interpretations of it at the weekend was fascinating. But for me, it needs clearing up, and what people are going to get sick of us talking on this program about VAR. Needs and the rules need to be clarified, need to be simplified, need to be made, easier for us to all to understand. Because I mean, basically, what that offside came down to for Manchester United at the weekend was a camera angle. It's the camera angle. It's the camera angle that is presented to VAR, and the camera angle that was presented to VAR made it look offside. But looking at it from one of the other camera angles, it wasn't offside. So that's the problem. Again, we say VAR is not to blame; it's the people using it. But if all that somebody is presented with is one certain angle, that's leading that person or those people to make one decision. And if you don't get the opportunity to look at all the angles, then they look at multiple angles for fouls, Melly, don't they? That's that's the difference. With why is it different for offside?
And I've never understood it because I've seen that computers is drawing the lines. So when them lines is getting put in and it's black or blue and red, that automatically decides if he's offside or he isn't offside. But like you say, you're looking at it from that angle. If you're looking from the angle, arrogant to that, then he's clearly onside by an absolute mile. Like, I don't know, mate, you know, like big decisions like that, it kind of just cost you points. It could cost you, like, your team might get on an absolute terrible run all because of one decision. So I kind of that much that it really needs to get sorted sooner rather than later, because, you know, and I'm not just saying that because it's Manchester United. I'm saying that because, you know, that could have been a relegation battle at the end of the year and they got that wrong. And then, you know, it could cost them millions and millions of quid. Form, you know, like, just everything relies on that one line, on the two lines. And I thought at the beginning of the season, you know, like we said, like, we don't understand everything that's been, all these new rules that have been put in. But I thought that it had changed at the beginning of the season. I thought that the benefit of the doubt was going to go on with the forward, because ultimately you've got one forward, which should be against a back line of four. So the benefit should always go to the forward anyway, I think. But I mean, you know, like, we're always on about it. We're not the only ones. Everybody's talking about it. It's great if the decision went your way. It's terrible if the decision didn't go your way. But ultimately, it needs sorting.
Okay, let's look at Newcastle's defeat at Brighton. I predicted a draw down there. I wasn't confident. I didn't think we'd go down there and turn Brighton over. Brighton have proved time and time again that no matter how many players they bring through the academy and put into the first team and then go on to sell for mass amounts of money, they seem to have a conveyor belt of players coming through who can just plonk in the side and who can do the business. And once again, Evan Ferguson this time announces himself on the big stage with a hat trick. Gone on to be injured there this week, which is a bit of a blow for him. Got a knee injury in the game and is now out. But yeah, I mean, a hat trick. Either side of the two halves, 27 minutes, 65 minutes, 70 minutes. He scored a consolation goal for Callum Wilson in the 92nd minute. But Newcastle, as I said at the top of the programme, and as I've said all week, didn't turn up. Seemed to be a little bit jaded, and there was just something not right. It's hard to put your finger on it. Of course, you had to make a little bit of a reshuffle because we were without Botman, who has been a stalwart of that back four and done very, very well. And to be without him, meant that Dan Burn went into centre half alongside Fabian Schär. Matt Targett, who a lot of fans have been crying out for to come back in at left back because people are critical of Dan Burn, came in, got a yellow card for his trouble and didn't play too well, it has to be said. The midfield three was the same. We had Joe Linton, Bruno and Tonali in there. And we also had a front line of Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak and Mickey Almiron. So not a massive changes, just Matt Targett in, Dan Burn, moving into centre half alongside Fabian Schär. But it was just a bad day at the office. Whether it was Nick Pope who made an error, whether it was Tonali switching off and allowing a shot to go through and going past Pope. It was a bad day at the office. What did you make of Newcastle's performance at the weekend?
It was always going to be hard, wasn't it, going to Brighton? I did actually say that you were probably going to end up getting beat 2-1 because it was just going to be a hard game, mate. It's it doesn't matter who goes there, they'll give them a game. And Newcastle off the back of 2 defeats. It started in the morning, didn't it? When the train strikes was on for the fans. Hats off to every single one of you who actually made the trip down there, because that would have been one hell of a jaunt for you. And then obviously it was capped off with a team underperforming. And for once, the week before, I got it anyhow, and I said, he got his decisions wrong. Mm-hmm. He got them right this time, ultimately, because they came on and they looked a little bit better, didn't they? So I think he's trying to find a balance, isn't he? I think he's trying to find a balance, and who's best of playing where. And I think the international break's come at a great time for you. Recoup. This is who's staying. This is who's gone. We'll just hit the ground running and be the Newcastle that we were last year. Because you look at the 4 games you've played, and there was a possible 12 points there. You come away with 3, which really you could have ultimately come away with at least 7, at least. So it's definitely points dropped. The Liverpool, there was points dropped. And Brighton on your day, you could have went there and got a draw. But, just the way that it went previously, I'd never seen you winning. And I found it hard to see that you were going to get even a draw. But Evan Ferguson, mate, he's the closest thing lately that I've seen of the same kind of quality as Rooney. Can you remember when Rooney came through?
Yeah.
I think he's gone into a bracket now with only about 3 or 4 other players to score a hat-trick at this age, you know. He's built like a brick shit house. He's
Yeah.
you know, he's everything you want, isn't he? So you know, Brighton's gonna pull another good one and get 100 million for another player, which cost them very little. They've just signed Fatty from Barcelona. Honestly, I don't know how that's happened. He was tipped to be the next Messi, him. It's unbelievable. It really is. You know, like we could do with somebody, whoever's bringing in this talent to Brighton, you know, like you would love that at your club, wouldn't you? Because it just seems like it's a conveyor belt of pure talent. And it doesn't matter who's the manager, you know, was it Roberto Martinez? And then the last guy, and now De Zerbi, that all just seem to play. They must know that this is the Brighton way, and this is how we're going to play. And they do it, you know, and it's nice to watch because they're not a big six, are they, really?
No, definitely not.
It's nice to see rather than, you know, like the likes of Man United and who are expected to bring all these players through, don't, in a club, you know, like on the bottom end of the country, who are probably a top 10 club these days, are doing that, you know. So, good luck to them, mate, you know, like, but Newcastle, they need to, you know, they've had a national break, and I think they need to get back to the way they were, you know, like, they've brought some players in. They've had 4 games there to get used to each other. If you kind of get used to each other after that, then, you know, you're getting paid stupid money to be professionals and play with Sunday League players if you have to. So, you know, something has to happen, whether it's Eddie needs to, you know, get a little bit tougher in the dressing room, or the players need to bind in, whatever it is, you know, like, something needs to happen in Newcastle, and something needs to happen quick, because you've got the Champions League coming up. I've just seen the announcement of your squad. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're pre-recording this show, but no real surprises there. You know, to see Emil Kraft. I mean, he's been a long-term injury. Him being out, Matt Ritchie doesn't really feature in the Premier League enough, so he's obviously missing out as well. A lot of it comes down to local, you know, the different rules and regs that they've got. We've obviously got 1 player less because we couldn't hit the local quota with ours. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is. We've got a good opportunity. But you're right, Newcastle have got to hit the ground running in the next league game, which of course the next fixture is Brentford at home.
Brentford.
In between the 2 Premier League fixtures, they then travel away to AC Milan. They then got Sheffield United away, which again you'll be looking to pick up some points from. We've now obviously got the Manchester City home game in the League Cup sandwiched in the middle of those fixtures, and then we've got Burnley at home in the league, and then Paris Saint-Germain at home as well. So, you know, big games coming up. The Champions League is in the middle of all of them. It's about squad rotation, squad management, moving players around. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But Brentford focusing on the Premier League, Brentford at home, Sheffield United away, Burnley at home. Newcastle need to be looking at a minimum of 7 points from those 3 games to get back on track. If they're going to have a similar season to what they had last season, they need 7 points from those 3 games. So, you know, we'll see. We'll cover that on the show moving forward. Let's look at one of the other. We'll look at the other games that took place in the Premier League at the weekend. Liverpool, of course, took on Aston Villa. Aston Villa, came to St James's Park and left. With their tail between their legs. They bounced back after that, but they went to Anfield, and I mean, they came up against some players really who, you know, I think are firing on all cylinders. Szoboszlai, who Newcastle were chasing in the summer, didn't get him. Opened the scoring for Liverpool on 3 minutes. An unfortunate own goal by Matty Cash, who, let's face it, has been one of Aston Villa's star performers and been in a lot of people's fantasy leagues. And Mohamed Salah, of course, much talked about. And of course, with this being pre-recorded, has he gone to Saudi? Has he stayed? You will know the answer by now. But Mo Salah, again, one of the Premier League's best goal scorers in recent seasons, finishing off that 3-0 win. So it was a big win for Liverpool against, you know, one of those fancied contenders for a European slot. And Liverpool, despite all this controversy that's been flying around with regards to Salah, will he stay or will he go? Getting on with the job and doing it quite well. And that midfield's going to be that midfield's impressive and probably going to get them through the season, I think, because they lost some key players in midfield. Henderson going to Saudi, of course, James Milner going as well. They've lost some key players, but they've replaced it with the likes of Szoboszlai, who looks a player.
He does. He really does. And then just they brought Graven back in, and I think they'll lose Salah, because apparently the talk on the of the town is that they're going to come in with 210 million, and they'd be stupid to refuse that with only a year left on his contract. It's silly money that they can rebuild the whole squad with that kind of money. If they had Brighton's recruiter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mate, to be honest with you, I didn't really have I didn't watch Liverpool, and I didn't try to keep tabs.
They're rivals to you. They've been long-term rivals. I know there's a bit of bitterness between you, your two clubs. I mean, Aston Villa. That's a bad result for Villa. If they're going to be contenders, they've got to go to teams like Liverpool and put up more of a fight than that, haven't they?
Oh, definitely, mate. I mean, they've been hitty missy, haven't they? But I think once they find their feet as well, I think international break is going to bring a lot. For 2 weeks after that, the first two fixtures, you'll see where teams are at. Mm-hmm. I think this is needed. There's just been a lot going on, like this Saudi has really disrupted the Premier League. Like whether the players have gone or not, players sitting back will be sitting thinking, wow, like it could be me next. So that they've definitely unsettled with, and it just feels like it's been a bit Tasmanian devil the whole summer transfer window, and now everybody can just settle. It's gone, like you say, this pre-recorded. I think their window ends. Is it 11th?
It'll have ended on Thursday, and as I say, with it being pre-recorded, we don't know whether Mo Salah's gone or not. I'm working on the assumption that he hasn't gone, because I think there's a bit of a resolve there from Liverpool. I think they might keep a hold of him, but that doesn't mean that the Saudis won't be back in January to try and tempt them again. But they won't get anywhere near 200 million, which has been the price that's been thrown around early part of this week for Salah's signature.
Aye, so like by the time they come back from their national duty, they'll be settled, and we'll get a proper feel of how the Premier League's going to go. But Aston Villa, they've been. I don't know. I mean, Fergie said it in the first game against you, and everybody was surprised. He likes the way that they have. He likes the way that they have progressed. Yeah. Sorry, Steve. I'm in the shop, and it's.
No worries. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll run the adverts and then
run the ads, mate. Run the ads, and I'll move.
To all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces Handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. A big thanks also to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. Welcome back as well to United Travel. They are a UK coaches firm, and they are based in the Northeast. They've got 2024 tours, and you can contact them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com, and they've got a website which is unitedgrouptravel.com. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. Big thanks to them for their sponsorship. Big thanks as well to Media Arts, and they supply all the video technology. If you want to become a member and get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, then get your smartphone and put it over this QR code. It will take you straight to the membership pack. It's a £25 one-off fee. You can also go to NUFC Matters website and search membership pack to book today. If you want to help the channel, then subscribe to it by hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video, and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we help the food bank on this channel. If you want to do so virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. The Alan Shearer raffle is back on. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket. Win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter today at nufcmatters.com.
Okay, we're back on the Premier League show, and just looking at the results from last weekend. Already looked at Manchester United and Arsenal, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Brighton. The other one that stands out from last weekend was Burnley 2, Tottenham 5. And, listen, Newcastle had a bad start to the season. Tottenham have had the polar opposite. And, Maddison signing, which Newcastle, were chasing by 3 windows, seems to be working short term for Spurs. And a wonderful hat trick from Song. Burnley certainly struggling with life back in the Premier League, and we'll be hoping to try and avoid a quick return to the Championship. But what have you made of Postecoglou, who's Spurs? He's happy-go-lucky Aussie manner. Seems to be winning the press over short term, and his style of football certainly winning the fans over, Melly.
He's, if you asked Tottenham fans when he got appointed, I think 90% of them would have said they didn't want him. But like I said to you the last week, mate, I watched a little bit of him when he was in Scotland, and I like the way that he presented himself. I like his style of play, and it's certainly paying off. It's exactly what the Premier League needs, isn't it? It's what it's been crying out for. And Sung Min Hung, Song, whatever you call him, mate. Honestly, I think he is going to become brilliant through Harry Kane leaving. The focus was on Harry Kane, wasn't it? And now he's free, and he's got Maddison supplying him. And Maddison is an excellent playmaker, absolutely outstanding. And I just seen a stat there, Steve, gone off from Burnley and Tottenham, and I think a little bit of credit wants to be given to Mbembo at Brentford as well. He scored 4. He's second behind Erling Haaland, absolutely great. I tipped it at the beginning of the season, and I know that's early, but I think that anybody in this league can beat anybody on that day.
No,
it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, if you let your standards drop, anybody in this league can beat anybody. There's no doubt about that. And we saw that at Stamford Bridge. What is going wrong with Chelsea? Big bucks, Chelsea. £1 billion spenders, Chelsea. Chelsea 0, Nottingham Forest 1. That is a result I did not think I'd see. Anthony Elanga getting a goal just after half time was the difference. And when you look at the lineups, that's the key for me.
Unbelievable.
The lineups. And listen to this for Chelsea. Sanchez in goal, Diazy, Silva, Colwell, Gusto, Gallagher, Caicedo, Chilwell, Sterling, Fernandes, Jackson. Unbelievable, isn't it, to listen to that compared to the likes of Gibbs, White, McKenna, Worrell, Bowley, Mangala, Yates, Danilo, Oria, and Turner in the Forest team. I mean, the difference between price in those two teams and squads is phenomenal. Both clubs, of course, have brought in lots of players, but the difference in prices is crazy. And Chris Wood even got on for a little cameo as well. So, what is going wrong at Chelsea?
I just think they need to gel, mate. I think they need to come together. They've obviously spent £1 billion. £1 billion worth of, multi-millionaires getting chucked into the team and having to be managed. And it's proven hard. I'm looking at the stats, and you would expect it. 77% possession for Chelsea, 21 shots to Nottingham Forest 7. But still, you can look at all the stats you want. It was 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, and now 3-2 win against them the week before now is looking pretty good, because I think they've probably played Chelsea at the right time. I think once the gel and these stats become goals, the shots on target, etc., I think once they do gel, it will come good. They've got good players in there. It's trying to filter out the ones that are just there for pure money and the ones who want to play football. There's a lot of people getting on that Mudrik's back, but I see a player on him. I said the same about Joe Linton. When he was gone through a poor form at Newcastle, I could always see some kind of player there. And I see the same with them. I think once they click, they'll be hard to beat. And I think Forest will look back at this game after Christmas and think, I'm pleased we played them when we did.
Yeah, Man City, Fulham, we're not going to dwell on that too much. 5-1, the only good thing to come out of that for me was Haaland scoring a hat-trick. I had him as my captain. I had him in my fantasy league as well, so that was good. He was I used my triple captain card on him on the same day, so I scored well. I'm learning all about this and how to do it.
Yeah.
So, E-I-E-I-E-I-O, up the fantasy league I go. I was up the 65th, I think, which I'm really pleased about because I was lingering around the bottom. Anyway, go on.
Sorry, I'll tell you what I was going to say, because I was on my way back from Scarborough on Saturday and I started listening to the Tyne game.
Yeah.
And after the Tyne game, Robbie Savage did a phone in, and one of the fans came on, and he was a Fulham fan, and he said, "I've never seen it, so I cannot pass judgment. I don't know if you have. That had one of the goals had been given, and it shouldn't have been. Have you seen it?"
Yes, I have. It was a blatant offside. He literally was offside. There's no doubt, and he moved towards the ball, and it was absolutely crazy. But Man City scored.
Like we said at the beginning of the show, Steve, that kind of decision that they're getting wrong has changed the game. They've went on and won 5-1. Would it have been 5-1 if that goal had not gone in?
No,
do you know what I mean?
Silva wasn't happy about that, and rightly so. I mean, he was going absolutely bonkers about it. It was Nathan Ake, I think, who was offside, and I mean, that was the second goal. Tim Ream had equalised against Alvarez's goal. It was finally poised at 1-1, and then Ake scores a blatantly offside goal on just at the end of the second half, and it just knocked the stuffing out of Fulham. And I mean, Silva wouldn't have been composed going in that dressing room afterwards. So again, another error, another VAR error, and another one which would have been squashed out. Finishing off the Premier League fixtures from last weekend, Luton, well, I had the first home game. Listening to the supporters was great. Listening, they were all delighted, all over the moon, and they were happy to score a goal. But it didn't do them any good. They lost 2-1 against West Ham, who are once again quietly going about their business. And West Ham unfancied, I think, but could be there or thereabouts again in the European
sitting in fourth there, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, early days, but West Ham seem to have got that midfield right. The acquisition of Ward-Prowse, Bourne continuing his good form is certainly helping. Paqueta, of course, unsettled during pre-season with a link to Man City, but he's there now. It's looking good for the Hammers, and they did okay, but I mean, we'll see. It is early days, and Everton and Sheffield United, well, it's one of those results which neither team really wanted. A 2-2 draw. They'll both be happy, I guess, that neither team lost. But when you're down the bottom and you're struggling, the last thing you need is playing your rivals and only getting a point. You've got to win those games if you're going to stay up. And as I keep saying on this platform, Everton have got that that big hearing coming up in October, and I still think that if they're sitting in around the bottom three, I still think they'll make an example of them, and I can see them ending up with a points deduction. I think Everton, who've been dicing with death for years, could go, but yeah. When you draw those games, it's the same when you play the big games at the top, isn't it? If you're hoping to win the league, you've got to learn to win those games, Mary, and it's the same at the bottom.
Aye, I remember back in the Fergie years, mate. Giggsy scoring in the last minute, and Fergie would say, "They're the games that you've got to win. The games what you're expected to win, and it's nails each. You get the 90+ minutes, and then Man City's done it for the last few years. Arsenal's done it, but they've never won the league. They did it a lot last season. Any amount of games I watched with them in, and it was ones each, and they scored with the last kick off a corner or something. But Everton's got Arsenal coming up next. It's on a Super Sunday at 4:30. I think that's a big game, and that could change the season. If they can get a win there, then it could potentially change the season. I know you didn't like them, and you keep saying that, but I like Sean Dyche, and with it being Merseyside, I hate Liverpool, so I like Everton. And I really hope that they do turn the corner and they get out the relegation zone, and as I do with Burnley as well.
I would like to see Burnley stay up. They're a family club, and when you go to Burnley as well, you go to the little cricket club if you're an away supporter. That's fantastic. And we were down there for the final Premier League game. We sent them down, unfortunately, and I've never met a bunch of supporters who were still wanting to have a bit crack with you. And I was wishing them all the best and hoping they came straight back up, which they duly did. And watching the documentary on Sky as well, about Burnley was great. They're a good club. They've got a good manager. I hope they stick. I hope they stick with them, and I hope they come good. With regards to Everton at the weekend, I've got to be honest. Jordan Pickford, he's a ex-Mackham. He's an ex-Sunderland player. He's a full-time Mackham, and he loves winding up supporters. He loves winding up Newcastle fans, but he was winding up the Sheffield United fans. And of course, he scored an own goal. He was unfortunate because the ball ricocheted and bounced off the back of his head and went in. But I tell you what, if you get a chance to watch the highlights of that game, give it a watch just to watch that double save that he pulls off. I've seen him do that a few times, and that's why Jordan Pickford. That's why Jordan Pickford is England's number one, because he's just got that kind of ability to pull off some fantastic saves. And the one thing I'll say about Pickford, despite him being a Mackham, he's a character. And characters, you need characters in the game, and he is a character. So yeah, I've got to be honest. Well done, Jordan Pickford. That was a great save, and that rounds off for us. You did mention earlier Brentford Bournemouth. It was a 2-2 draw. We've already covered that. So that was the end of what we'll call match day 4. And as you say, looking ahead to next weekend, some big games coming up. Wolves, Liverpool. It takes place on the Saturday, 12:30. We've got Fulham against Luton. Tottenham versus Sheffield United. West Ham, Man City. There's an interesting one. Man City might not be looking forward to going to West Ham. Manchester United, Brighton. Of course, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace. Newcastle, Brentford. We've already touched on that as well. Bournemouth play Chelsea. Another tough trip for Chelsea. And Bournemouth will be waiting for them. Everton against Arsenal. And Nottingham Forest take on Burnley, a game which one of those teams will need to win. Burnley will be looking to win that game, and Forest will be looking after winning against Chelsea to trying to get something out of that. So that takes up the roundup. Let's talk on a couple of topics. I'm going to bring this up because I got sent something today, Melly, before we came on air, and me and you were talking about ticketing. We've talked about it on here before. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to talk about ticketing because I can hear people groaning out there already. I'm going to talk about a change of bus travel in Scotland for football or sporting supporters. Doesn't say football, but this is something I can see coming in England if it's coming in Scotland. The Senior Traffic Commissioner is requesting the UK government to give permission for the following. Bus companies must tell dedicated football officer 48 hours before the game the number of supporters expected to travel, the number of vehicles booked, the name and the contact number for the person who made the booking. Buses can't stop anywhere within 10 miles of the ground without police permission. Buses can't stop at any pub for a beer unless it's sold with a substantial meal. Buses can't drop off or pick up fans at any unauthorised locations without prior permission of the police. And buses are to arrive at the venue no earlier than 2 hours before and not later than 1 hour before the scheduled start of the game, unless otherwise directed by police. This is something that they're trying to bring in Scotland. Is this just another example of rules and regs being brought in to try and change the face of football, Melly?
Mate, you were saying all that there, and I was thinking, why? Why? Just it's not like it's Green Street hooligans anymore. Like all it's all died, isn't it? There's more. It's like Big Brother walking around now. So it's very few and far between. You'll get two clubs fighting unless there's a real grievance. That's the only reason that I can see why they would want to bring all that in. I just didn't understand it.
I think making wholesale changes, Melly. They're trying to make wholesale changes. This is what this ID check at our away end is all about. Are you getting an ID check yet?
No, but I tell you what, we had a good conversation on the train on the way down the other day to Arsenal. Somebody was saying about the Newcastle, and they were saying they were sending out dummy tickets. So, like if you had so many credits and you applied for aways, they were saying that you'll get a ticket, but it could be a dummy. And when you get to the stadium and you scan it, it's a dummy, and you're getting sent to the ticket office to prove that you are that person that has applied. So they reckon that Man City went down to 0 credits for youth. Is that right?
Yeah, it did. All of the away games are going down. And I mean, there was the Brighton one, we understood why, rail strike, etc. But I've got a photograph of the away end at Brighton, and there's lots of empty seats. Now, some of that could be to do with the with the rail strike, but also empty seats previously at Man City as well. I've got the impression that some people might be buying away tickets and not going now.
Mate, honestly, I think it's an absolute farce. What was wrong with it the way it was before? If you wanted an away ticket, you would get an away ticket. But you've got to actually be involved in the club. You can't just be sitting at home and think, oh well, I'll go to City away, because you wouldn't get a ticket. But if you're in the clique of going away regularly, within them lads around you, you're bound to be able to get a ticket. The way they're doing it now, I don't know, mate, what they're wanting. Are they wanting more corporate in there? Are they wanting what? I don't get it, because the true fans are going to be sitting at home watching it on the telly, which is sad.
I genuinely think that's the case, and I mean, you know, I'm going to have to do something on the show with regards to maybe Newcastle's corporate sections. I mean, you know, it'll advertise it for the club, so they'll be happy. I'm no doubt. But just to give you an idea of where we're actually at with the ticket prices going up, and you know, I think it's going to get worse. I think there'll be different areas of the ground where there'll be people who are on 10-year season ticket deals. Which will come to an end now. They were extended because obviously COVID, you know, took away a season and a half for people. So they gave the 10-year ticket deal another 2 years to those people who missed out. But I think those areas will end up being changed. You know, obviously there'll be a rise in ticket price, and then, you know, on top of that, you know, people might have to get moved. So there is a lot of that going on. Somebody told me the other day that the Shearer's bar upstairs in Shearer's bar is now a lounge where you have to pay slightly more a ticket. Now I don't know the exact price. I think it was mooted that it was something in the region of 360 quid for a ticket. But of course, as well, when you go in these corporate areas, you can't buy one ticket on its own. You've got to buy a pair, or if you want 3, then you've got to buy 4. It's the way of the world. So Newcastle fans are going to have to get used to this, you know, that we are going to be priced out of it. But yeah, getting back to the away travel stuff, it is unnerving. It is very big brother, and it is a massive change to what we've all been used to. And the only reason that I can think that they are doing that is because football clubs in general do not want busfuls of what the middle class and upper class might say is undesirables traveling to a football game, drinking beer and enjoying themselves. And I think eventually we're moving more towards, they would love it if they could move towards the American style of sporting event. And I think this is the problem. We've got American owners in the Premier League who would love it if the stadium was full to the rafters of families having popcorn and drink, you know, hot dogs, and, you know, having timeouts and all of that, and being in the ground for 4 or 5 hours. They'd love it. And they'd also love it if people like me and you, who've done the hard miles on the road, were sitting at home and watching it on the TV and paying for the privilege. That's what they want. And I think that's what will happen. I think that's what will happen eventually. I remember doing an editorial in one of the fanzines that I wrote years ago, saying that you know, that the Premier League might be being greeted, but eventually it would kill football as we know it. And it is. It's still the best league in the world. It's entertainment, and you're saying it's exciting. Probably going to be the most exciting one for years. Can't disagree with you at all. But unfortunately, I think they're just trying to get rid of the ordinary fan, the fan that's kept the game going for years. And where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us finding non-league and going to watch the non-league, finding something else to watch. You'll still be a Newcastle fan, you'll still be a Man United fan. You just won't be able to get it. You won't be able to go. So you'll find something else to do. You'll find another club to support. It may well boost the non-league, Melly.
Which would be a good thing, wouldn't it? You know, but it's sad, mate. You know, like, these guys have gone for years and years, and most of the buses that you see are branches. Do you know what I mean? Apart from the away day coaches, obviously, you know, like the away days, you'll get a coach, and it will be full of like drinkers and, like you've just said, the type that these poshies don't want attending. But without them, there's no atmosphere.
Yeah.
So Sky and whoever's broadcasting it are going to have to like have their own atmosphere to play, because Arsenal, mate, honestly, I've never met a worse bunch of fans in my life. It was like sitting in a church until they scored. And then, like, they topped it off with playing Ice Baby at the end, you know, and that'll mix it up. But, like, you said you went to Man City, you know, like, and it was all fireworks. You got to Wolves, it's fire. Man City, it's fireworks. And so it's getting there. You're right what you're saying, it's getting there. But it'd be a sad day when the likes of us kind of got into a match, because, you know, it's filled with money, let's say.
Yeah, this is where we're at, unfortunately. And yeah, we'll watch this bus situation, I guess, with interest. You and I are in a WhatsApp group together with somebody who will remain nameless. But at the weekend, you were absolutely baffled at what you actually read in that WhatsApp group. Tell us what happened, Millie.
It's just, you know, people betting against the team. You know, I just cannot understand it. I'd rather, you know, like, even if it meant I won 10 grand by betting against Man United getting beat, I wouldn't bet. you just wouldn't bet. But this guy bet a tenner to win 16 quid. I just can't understand it. You know, he was buzzing that Brighton had won, and I thought.
So just to clarify for people out there, one of our friends who's in a WhatsApp group with us is a Newcastle fan. Has to be said, doesn't go to many games. Maybe this is the reason that he finds it easy to do this. But he did bet against Newcastle United. He bet on Brighton winning. And I think the grand payout was £26, Melly.
26 quid. And that's what, you know, if you had him in an accumulator, I still couldn't accept it. But I would understand it a little bit better. I just think, I don't know, I'd rather not win the money. You know what I mean? And me team win. He was saying, I could see what he was saying. Like, if Newcastle win champion, I'm over the moon. But if they get beat, then I'm over the moon as well, because I've won. It's a win-win. And I thought, well, you cannot be over the moon because your team got beat. You just, I've never met anybody who was happy that their team got beat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I just couldn't understand, honestly.
He was happy, and then he came on and justified it with a long message about why, and you know, said well, he's different to us. And it has to be said as well, he had a double win because he also got the result right in the boxing on the night, didn't he?
Aye, that was a good call, like, because Eubank absolutely annihilated Smith, and he reckons that it was that was put on, you know, like it was Smith was made to lose that.
Yeah, he reckoned it was a fix, wasn't he? So that we've got, you know, so
the trilogy.
The trilogy, yeah, that's what he was saying.
And you know what, mate? You watch the first fight and you watch the second fight and you think, as soon as he came out, that Smith looked like his legs was all out, I thought, from the offset.
Yeah.
And then he said that he pulled it in the second round, but I don't know, either that or Eubanks just thought, you know what, you're not doing that to me again, like.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, boxing. I was involved in pro boxing for 9 years, and there's definitely some situations engineered. And does that happen at the top level? Well, why wouldn't it? It's big money, and a trilogy would be something that everybody would want to see. It's 1-1 now between them, and be interesting to see what happens. Eubank will have to get a new trainer, though. I noticed on the news this week.
You see that?
His trainer went through. He went through.
Being remanded in custody.
And a gun and ammunition was found in his hand luggage, like, so. Yeah, get out of that, mate. Unbelievable. That one.
Right.
But, on another situation, the ticket tout situation, which again, getting back to what we're talking about before about away day checks. Newcastle had to come out this week and basically tell Newcastle fans not to buy tickets off third-party sites because it's become obvious, especially big games, Liverpool at home. Tickets were on there for about 250, 300 quid in the home end. Now, who sells these tickets, Melly? Do you have this kind of issue with Man United?
Aye, a lot of people get them. You know, they just create memberships and they apply, and before you know it, you're on these websites. You can get to the game, but it's going to cost you 400 quid. I've always wondered how these teams get them, how these people get them, because even in the final for Wembley, you know, like it's hard to get tickets. But if you got online and type in, you know, like cup final tickets, there's loads of sites have them, and you think, how are they doing it? Other clubs actually release and say, like, look, we'll take 1,000 tickets to each game, guaranteed. Doesn't matter if it's the cup, first round, second round, whatever. Now that they're going to get their money at the later stage of the cups and the better games, are they doing that? We do it now. You do it now. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. There's got to be something somewhere, mate, because a lot of sites have got the tickets to games where you struggle to get in.
Yeah, it's a strange situation. And again, the clubs need to be clamping down on that, because if it's not fans doing it, it's got to be somebody within the club. You know, so maybe these things do need to be looked at, and they do need to be checked. You had
They're the kind of things that I think should be checked instead of this, like, you know, the bus lock and the dodgy tickets, the clone tickets for the away fans. Yeah. They've clamped right down on that. Why not clamp down on that? This is what I'm saying. And it boosts your point, what you're saying, that they didn't want us there anymore, because the only reason that would happen, mate, is because for corporate, again, more money.
I remember being at a Man United game, and I think I've told you this, but I remember going to a Manchester United game with Newcastle United and being in the corporate section, and it was it was an odd situation. I mean, the Newcastle side of the room were given like stools, were sitting at a counter, and there was food put on, etc. It was all right, it was nice. But then you could see the Manchester United mob sitting on tables getting served like an a la carte meal, and I found that a bit bizarre. The most bizarre thing I saw in there that day, I think Manchester United had won the Europa and it must have been the League Cup, I think, one season, and two blokes came in carrying the cups and took them into this little room. And then people
used to say that, are you?
No, I'm not. But people started queuing up. I tell you what, I wasn't used to. I tell you what, I didn't expect is a bloke coming back. He went to go and get his photo with it. And he came back. He says, "I'm not paying 40 quid to get me photos taken with a trophy." Wow. In the corporate where Sir Alex Ferguson is and bloody Angus Deaton and all them sitting eating their bloody that prawn sandwiches, etc. I had the trophies. They literally had the trophies. They took them into this little room, which looked like the boardroom. And then the two security stood outside, and then people started queuing up. And there was a couple of people who went in, came back, had their photos taken. And one guy went up and came back and said, I'm not paying 40 quid. That's a disgrace. And I just couldn't believe it. You win a trophy and you're being asked to pay to have money. I mean, that would never happen. You wouldn't imagine at any other club. But yeah, it was bizarre. That was another day as well where somebody says, "Oh, Alex Ferguson's there. Do you not want to get your photo with him?" I went, "No, not at all."
It's funny that I was in my mate's box at the Tyne, and I went to the toilet, and there was a lady walking by, somebody obviously who was working in the Newcastle, and I says to them, I says, "Can you show us? Can you take us to where the cups are? All your cups." You know what she done? She took us down the elevator and took us into the kitchen.
I knew you were going to say that.
Do you know what it is? I says, "No, not them kind of cups. The other cups, like trophies and stuff." And she went, "Oh, sorry." And she took us round the corner. There's the trophy cabinet, and it had like a plaque above. Do you know what it was called? It was named after one of your old players, Albert.
Yeah. I've lost the comments that you.
I'll be around here, Steve.
Yeah. You're only here for another 10 minutes. You had another. I'm sure you had another couple of points. Is anything else you wanted to bring up tonight on the Premier League show? I can't remember what you'd sent us. You'd sent us a couple of things.
I was just a little bit peeved at the way that the game ended at Arsenal. But you're seeing a lot more, and it seems to be mainly Man United at the minute. With these players, firstly Mason Greenwood, who's now joined Getafe. Very surprised, but he's gone. And now Anthony is being accused of something similar. Maybe it's not actual sexual abuse like Mason Greenwood did, but physical abuse, which is just as worse. So
obviously we've got to be careful discussing something that's not in the public domain. But you mentioned, it's been made public. It's public knowledge.
It's in the public domain now, man.
We're going to reiterate it's an allegation. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's an allegation, obviously. But out of an army, again, who's doing background checks on these players? They're all multimillionaires. I'm not saying that he's guilty or he's not guilty. Like you say, it's an allegation. But there seems to be more and more, and I mean more and more. Last year it was Thomas Partey and Mason Greenwood, and however many more didn't hit the public domain. Do you know what I mean, mate? Surely there needs to be more for a check on these players when they're being bought, rather than, "Oh, he's a good player, let's buy him." Right, he's a good player, but let's do a complete background check. Let's get his family in. Let's get his partner in. Everything okay? Is there any? Do you know what I mean? There needs to be more checks done, I think, because ultimately what we're creating is a lot of millionaire kids who think they can do what they want.
Yeah, no, I would agree, mate. I would agree. Unfortunately, as well, we live in a different era now. Back in the 80s and 90s, when players were going out, there was no mobile phones, there was no, there was none of this stuff. And now things can be changed, things can be altered, things can be made to look as if you've done one thing when you haven't done it at all. So yeah, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth. And when you're talking about £1 million footballers, though, I've always said footballers should be very careful. When you get to that level, you need to protect yourself. And if you're going to go out, we had this with Lascelles the other week, completely vindicated by the club. The club stuck up for him, accepted his story, and moved on. But ultimately, from his point of view, you put yourself in that position, anything can happen. You know,
Mhm.
if you, that's what you need to remember. And hopefully he's learned a valuable lesson from that. But yeah, you're right. There is a lot of accusations. Let's finish up on the Champions League, because it's something that Newcastle United are going to experience. When you saw the draw come out, mate, last week, what was your thoughts on it? Because Newcastle have got obviously PSG, they've got AC Milan, and they've got Borussia Dortmund. Newcastle fans, of course, naturally delighted with the fact that they've got three of the big teams, and are going to have an opportunity to travel away to watch them, and of course see some great players and great clubs come to St James's Park. Haven't played any of these clubs in European football either. We did play Inter Milan, of course, in our last jaunt into the Champions League. But people calling it the group of death. It's Group F. It is a tough group, but it's what we want, isn't it? As football fans, you want to play against the best, and you want to see the best.
You know, if somebody had said to you 3 years ago, right, that in 3 years' time you're gonna have Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund, and AC Milan playing at Newcastle in the Champions League, you would have snapped their hands off. Honestly, they're the kind of games you want. And I said it, you know, when we first started this off, me and you, Steve, I said to you, and you said, you know, do you want to get the bigger teams in the later rounds, or nah, you didn't, man? Because are you going to win the Champions League realistically? You're not, are you? So for the group stages, you want the best teams in the world to be coming, and then for your fans, you know, to be going to them kind of grounds. I mean, Borussia Dortmund, mate, honestly, that will be absolutely amazing. That, like, amazing. Can you imagine the hairs on the back of the Toon fans' necks when that wall starts jumping? And, you know, because the Toon fans are just as good as well, and, you know, the war flags and all that, they're gonna up the ante, aren't they, for the Champions League, and they're gonna make it really, really good. So, mate, hey, you've got to be buzzing. Like, you've got to be absolutely buzzing with that, because, and let's not take it away from you, right? You're more than capable of beating AC Milan, beating Borussia Dortmund, and PSG. They're not who they were. You know, they're playing the Farmers League. You can beat them all. If you can get a draw with, imagine Newcastle win that group.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's calling it the group of death. Imagine if Newcastle win that group.
Yeah.
What that would do for your confidence, for, you know, like, honestly, we'll never hear the end of it.
No, you definitely won't on this show, mate. I'll be rubbing it in. But yeah, listen, it's a great opportunity, isn't it? It's a great opportunity for Newcastle to Newcastle fans to experience it. And again, we're already experiencing the cost that it's going to be as well. Interesting when you look on how much it's going to cost prior to the Champions League draw, and then what it's going to cost to get to places after the Champions League draws announced. And I mean, this is something you've had to deal with as a Manchester United fan going away to Europe.
Just gone up to Edinburgh, mate. Gone to Edinburgh or gone further down south, and you'll get cheaper flights.
Yeah. I mean, you've just got to. It's like a busman's holiday. You've got to work it out, haven't you? That's the problem. And you know, Newcastle fans won't be used to it. Got to be, you know, you've got to be sharp. You've got to get in quick, and you've got to make sure that you know what you're doing. But I mean, there's lots of different ways. You know, when you go abroad, you know, is there a chance of picking up a ticket for those people who maybe can't get a ticket in the ballot or can't get a ticket, you know, prior to that? Are there people selling them outside the ground, Melly?
It's hard. Yeah, the European aways are hard. I tell you, you know, like, I've been trying to get one, but I got a little loophole off my friend there on Sunday, and basically I don't have Newcastle to do it, but we work with sportsbreaks.com.
Yeah.
So they get tickets allocated to them for away fans to put in with a package. So you'll get the flight, your hotel, and your ticket, and you actually get the credit. So that's going to be the best way for us to get it. And I would assume that Newcastle will do something very similar, you know. And it's not, it is a lot of money. I'm not saying it isn't a lot of money, but if you're really wanting to go, you've obviously got a little bit of money behind you, because it's not going to be cheap. I think we were looking at about 350 quid, and that was for our flight over, one night in the hotel, and a ticket. So Copenhagen's booked.
Yeah, I was going to say your Champions League group is Bayern Munich, Copenhagen, and Galatasaray. Happy with that?
I'm happy with that. I mean, you know, Galatasaray is a hard ground to go into. Bayern Munich, you know, they're beatable. I'm pleased we're playing them the first game, get it out of the way early in the season. Will we get anything? You know, I don't know. I'm not optimistic, but if we come away with a draw, I'll be more than happy, mate. But the rest we can win. They're definitely winnable. But I think I want to go to Copenhagen. Me and me pal Gary's going to go over there. I don't fancy Galatasaray. It's just absolutely bonkers, mate. You know, I've got a family back at home and that, and I don't want to get into some kind of trouble that I couldn't get out of. Because it's I don't know if you've seen with Roma, but one of me pal I was with on Sunday, he went to Rome, and he said it was absolutely ridiculous. You know, like he says, because we scored a goal and we were banging on the sheets your fans are going to have to be wary of this, because, you know, like in foreign countries, they didn't put up with any kind of tolerance of the British, like. So our fans had been battering on the front when we scored, and literally, he says, like, he doesn't have the police that just handed over batons to the Rome fans. He says, because they came in with just plain jeans on with body armor, and they were like literally battering them, you know. They ended up in a little tiny corner, and he says that this went on for ages, you know, and they just kept giving them it. It's dangerous, mate. The European aways can be dangerous, especially for the British, because we're tired with the brush, aren't we? That we cause trouble everywhere we're going. So just enjoy it. Football's there, you know, like at the end of the day, it's a game, isn't it? You know, nobody should ever die going to a game. Nobody should ever be hurt going to a game. Just go and watch your team and come home. But you need to also be a little bit clever and think of the ways that aren't really worth it. I don't think, like, so Galatasaray for me isn't worth going.
Yeah. Okay. In England, of course, international break, take on Ukraine. This program goes out on Saturday. So Ukraine, England in a Euro qualifier, and then Scotland, England, which takes place on the 12th. I mean, with you being a Manchester United fan from the northeast, you're not a Scotland fan from the northeast, are you?
No, an Ireland.
International.
No, mate. I don't know. I think we'll draw against Ukraine because they're a tight side, but I think we'll beat the Scots. Like,
yeah, interesting. Elliot Anderson will be called up as well for that game. Would be interesting to see whether he gets a game. Maybe it's a game to Callum Wilson. We'll wait and see. As always, Melly, a pleasure to spend an hour with you talking something different. Look forward to seeing you again next week, mate. Take care, pal.
And you, pal. Take care. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.